South Korea's new president has been sworn into office, declaring he's prepared to visit the nuclear-armed North if the conditions are right. It's an early sign that Moon Jae-in wants to adopt a more conciliatory approach to an increasingly belligerent Pyongyang in a break with current policy to diffuse security tensions on the Korean peninsula. Fresh from a decisive victory in a snap election, he says he's also ready to negotiate with Washington and Beijing to ease the row over a U.S. missile defense system being deployed in South Korea.
South Korea may soon cooperate more with North Korea, and some wonder if it will cause a rift with the U.S. Newly elected President Moon Jae-in has advocated for more negotiations and economic cooperation with the North. From 1998 to 2008, North and South Korea actively engaged with each other under what was called the Sunshine Policy, but that didn't stop the North's nuclear program. Moon's sympathetic view of the North seems to contradict President Donald Trump's aggressive rhetoric, but Trump recently said he'd be honored to meet with Kim Jong-un. Also like Trump, Moon has criticized former President Barack Obama's, quote, strategic patience approach to North Korea, which was heavy on sanctions. Trump and Moon have both advocated proactive policies, but Moon's is less strong-armed.
The White House has congratulated Moon Jae-in for his victory in the presidential election and said that President Trump is looking forward to working with President-elect Moon. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer also said the U.S. was united with the people of South Korea in celebrating their peaceful and democratic transition of power. Reuters quoted an unidentified U.S. official as saying that Moon's election win is not expected to alter the South Korea-U.S. alliance, despite his questioning of the deployment of a THAAD missile defense battery on the Korean peninsula. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent out a congratulatory message of his own. Abe said South Korea was an important strategic partner and expressed his wish to meet Moon as soon to exchange ideas on a number of issues. Beijing, meanwhile, has not yet given any comments on Moon's victory.
Determined to protect a dominant security role and vast economic interests, Iran's Revolutionary Guard's military force is quietly backing a hardliner in the May 19th presidential polls, with an eye toward a bigger prize, which is the succession of the supreme leader. President Hassan Rouhani, a relative moderate elected in 2013 in a landslide, on promises to open up Iranian society and reduce its international isolation, is widely seen as the favorite to win a second term next week. But the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and the Basij, a volunteer militia under the Guard's command, are taking steps to promote the candidacy of his main rival, hardline cleric Ibrahim Raisi.
Turkey and Israel reinstated diplomatic ties just last year, but you'd never know it if you listen to the latest batch of insults and threats towards Israel coming from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The hardline leader used the opening ceremony of an international Islamic forum to blast Israel in a show of solidarity with the Palestinians. While rejecting Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem, Erdogan said that, quote, every day that the city is occupied is an insult to Muslims. He then called for a flood of Muslim visits to the Temple Mount to stop Jerusalem from being Judaized. The Turkish president is branding Israeli policies as racist and discriminatory and is blasting a proposal to limit the volume of Muslim pre-dawn calls to prayer. Israeli leaders are infuriated by the remarks. The Speaker of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein, says that unfortunately, despite the reconciliation between Israel and Turkey, Erdogan remains an enemy of the Jewish state. The Foreign Ministry has issued a statement denouncing the Turkish allegations as baseless slander and is telling Erdogan that anyone who systematically violates human rights in his own country shouldn't preach about morality to the only democracy in the region.
More than 50 people have been wounded in twin bomb attacks in southern Thailand. The blasts happened in Patani. The first bomb was planted in a motorcycle at a car park. The second blew up in front of a busy supermarket. Police believe the bomber fled the scene before the explosions. The city's deputy police chief has blamed the attacks on Muslim insurgents. Patani is a mainly Buddhist city, but there has been an ongoing conflict there with Muslim separatists.
ISIS has released a video showing an alleged Russian intelligence officer get beheaded. The video, released May 9th, shows a man identified as 36-year-old Captain Yevgeny Petrenko dressed in black and kneeling before an ISIS militant. In the video, Petrenko confesses to trying to infiltrate the group. The Independent reports he said, quote, "This idiot believed the promises of his state not to abandon him if he was captured." Petrenko is beheaded shortly afterward. The Washington Post's access to the video through Site Intelligence Group, which monitors extremist media. Russia denies the video is authentic, though. The Russian Ministry of Defense said in a statement, quote, "All members of the Russian armed forces in Syria are alive." Russian Senator Viktor Azarov told Interfax news agency that if the video is real, though, then, quote, "there will be hell to pay."
The Pentagon will ask for an increase of 3,000 to 5,000 more soldiers to train and advise Afghan military police. At present, U.S. troops in Afghanistan number about 8,400, far fewer than the U.S. presence of more than 100,000 troops 6 years ago. Now, amid a renewed Taliban insurgency, the Trump administration could go beyond advising and training Afghan troops and allow more direct engagement between U.S. forces and the Taliban. Defense Secretary James Mattis explained the Pentagon's reasons for asking for more troops.
The only reason we are fighting right now is to free the people and throw the threat off balance. Once we get that threat subdued, then the real work begins, as some people put it, to actually exploit the enemy being banished. And how do we do that? Bottom line is we've got to restore government services, and that means we all have to work together. Daesh has done horrible damage. They leave numerous mines in their wake when they pull out, and you've got to actually help return to normalcy. Otherwise, you simply breed the next problem.
Despite objections from NATO ally Turkey, the Pentagon is to supply weapons to Kurdish YPG forces battling ISIL militants in Syria. Fighting under the Syrian Democratic Forces banner, the YPG are involved in an operation to retake Raqqa. Self-styled Islamic State has made the Syrian city its de facto capital and a hub for planning attacks against the West. The White House says arming the YPG is to ensure victory.
We're keenly aware of the security concerns of our coalition partners in Turkey. We want to reassure the people and the government of Turkey that the U.S. is committed to preventing additional security risks and protecting our NATO ally. The U.S. continues to prioritize support for Arab elements of the SDF.
Ankara views the Kurdish YPG militia as the Syrian extension of the Kurdish PKK militant group, which has fought an insurgency in Turkey's southeast since 1984. There's been no public response from Turkey to the Pentagon announcement. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is expected to meet US President Donald Trump later this month.
The U.S. and Turkish defense ministers have spoken on the phone after the Pentagon announced it will supply weapons to the YPG in Syria to fight against Daesh. It is unclear how Turkish Defense Minister Fikri Ishik responded, but the Pentagon said that both men affirmed their support for peace and stability in Iraq and Syria. U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis says the United States and Turkey don't necessarily agree on a path forward, but he said the two are going to sort it out.
We had very open discussions with the Turks. It's a NATO ally, and NATO allies stick together. That's not to say we all walk into the room with exactly the same appreciation of the problem or the path forward. We work that out through extensive dialogue. We've been conducting military and diplomatic dialogues with the Turks, and it was a very, very useful discussion today.
6 young asylum seekers are on trial for attempted murder in Germany for a fire attack on a homeless man sleeping at a metro station in Berlin. A 7th migrant charged with failing to assist the Polish man who was saved after passengers put out the flames. The accused are from Syria and Libya. The alleged ringleader's a 21-year-old. Police have cleared a makeshift migrant camp in Paris in which more than 1,600 people had been living in squalid conditions for weeks. Security forces moved in early in the morning in a northern neighborhood where tents had been pitched near a motorway, close to a temporary refugee shelter working flat out to cope with demand. The housing minister says those in the camp were essentially from Sudan, Eritrea and Somalia, as well as Afghans, mostly men, and some women and children who've been taken care of directly. 2 buses have already left. They're going to shelters in the Paris region today. This was the biggest such evacuation since November, when another huge camp was cleared in Paris. Thousands of migrants and refugees have been relocated across France since the demolition of the sprawling shantytown known as the Jungle at Calais in the north.
The Trump administration is looking for evidence of crimes committed by Haitian immigrants. Officials are making decisions about the humanitarian program that has shielded tens of thousands of Haitians from deportation since the earthquake in 2010 that damaged most of the country. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Policy Chief is also looking into how many Haitians enrolled in the Temporary Protected Status Program and took advantage of benefits, which is not allowed. It is not clear what will determine their stay within the United States.
Thousands of indigenous Warao people, mostly hailing from the Orinoco Delta in eastern Venezuela, have fled to Brazil to seek a new life. Anxious to escape the escalating economic and social crises at home, hundreds have made their way to makeshift camps in the Amazonian city of Manaus, in the north of the country. A friend told me it was good here, that you could get clothes and food here, said this man. There's no food in Venezuela, that's why we came here. While many Venezuelans are said to have been deported amid concerns over begging and vagrancy, a reported 5,400 have requested the right to stay. The city's governor has declared a social emergency and is calling for government help.
More protests are expected in Venezuela today as the 6-week wave of anger at President Maduro's government continues. On Tuesday, there were clashes in San Cristobal, capital of the western state of Táchira. Some reports say demonstrators are planning to throw excrement at security forces using so-called poo-poo-toff cocktails in a new tactic that sparked controversy among the opposition.
The atmosphere is tense here in downtown Santiago, with thousands of university and secondary school students protesting. They're angry with the Chilean president, Michelle Bachelet, for not doing more with her education reforms. After massive student protests in 2011, President Bachelet promised to provide free university education, but students complain her plans don't go far enough and only cover 14% of tuition. They say a good quality, free education is their fundamental human right, and they'll continue to fight until they get it. They also accuse the private sector of abusing the system because it provides a poor quality, expensive education to millions of students. Anger and frustration often leads to clashes with the police, who use tear gas on them to break up the protests. But the students don't care. All they want is change, by whatever means possible.
A near riot broke out last night at the Fort Lauderdale airport after Spirit Airlines canceled 9 flights. Spirit blamed a job action by pilots. Today, a judge issued a temporary restraining order against their union. Manuel Bajorquez has more.
At the Spirit Airlines ticket counter, fists and bodies were about the only things flying last night. It erupted after a week of canceled flights at 4 Spirit airport hubs across the country, leaving passengers stranded and their patience short. Debbie McGrandy has had 3 flights canceled.
Very angry people. Everybody had places to be and couldn't be there.
Spirit is blaming a pilot work slowdown due to a contract dispute for the disruption. In a lawsuit, the airline says it has had to cancel 300 flights over the last week, impacting some 20,000 passengers, costing them $8.5 million in lost revenue. At Fort Lauderdale Airport today, it was calmer, but passengers like Mike McGrath were still frustrated.
It feels like we have no control over this.
There you go. Busted his leg. From United to American.
Hey, bud, you do that to me and I'll knock you flat.
On board and in the terminal.
Do you know why I'm videotaping you? Because you guys have terrible customer service.
The tensions between airlines and passengers have reached a tipping point for the industry.
They cannot go on this way with this kind of news day after day.
Charles Leoka, president of the passenger advocacy group Travelers United, says airlines need to refocus on customer service as a top priority.
All the way from the CEO right down to the gate agent. Right now, the airlines are thinking about one thing, that's profits.
Spirit Airlines' Paul Berry.
This isn't a customer service issue. This is a pilot issue, not showing up to fly their flights.
On Tuesday, Reuters reports that 4 married lesbian couples expecting children have filed a lawsuit in Tennessee looking to overturn a new state law. The new law could deny rights to same-sex couples by requiring a strict adherence to terms such as husband. On Friday, Governor Bill Halsem signed the law that requires for words in state statutes to be interpreted with natural and ordinary meaning. Tuesday's lawsuit says that the right to be recognized as a parent of a child of one's marriage is a right which deserves constitutional protection.
In another developing story, an emergency was declared today at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation in Washington state, a vast storage facility in the eastern part of that state. Part of a tunnel used to transport radioactive waste collapsed. Washington's governor called it serious, though no radiation has been detected so far. John Blackstone's following this.
The collapsing soil created a 20 by 20 foot hole over a tunnel containing radioactive debris at Hanford. It's the nation's largest storage site of nuclear weapons waste. Destry Henderson is with Hanford's Emergency Operations Center and says nearly 5,000 workers had to take cover.
What that means is shelter in place. This is purely precautionary because, again, no employees were hurt and there was no spread of, no indication of a spread of radiological contamination.
The tunnel contains rail cars used decades ago and stored plutonium and uranium. All the radioactive waste from the Manhattan Project, which tested and built the atomic bomb during World War II, is buried at Hanford, as is Defense Department nuclear weapons material. Through the 1980s, a massive cleanup effort costing $2 billion a year is aimed at decontaminating a site half the size of Rhode Island.
The crisis isn't over yet, and so we're waiting to see how bad can it get?
Tom Carpenter is with Hanford Challenge, a watchdog group monitoring safety at the site. In spite of the fact that the cleanup is going on, costing a couple of $2 billion a year, it's actually getting more dangerous in some ways.
More dangerous with time. We're going to see tank failures in the future. This is a wake-up call.
Norway plans to kill more than 2,000 reindeer in an attempt to eradicate a deadly disease. On May 8th, Norway's Agriculture Ministry authorized the mass slaughter of a herd living in the southwestern mountain region of Nordfjella. The decision comes after 3 cases of chronic wasting disease were detected among the herd last year. 2 other cases were found in moose, but the AFP news agency said experts are less concerned about those since moose live alone. The Norwegian Food Safety Authority requested the reindeer slaughter, and the Agriculture Ministry granted its permission. The ministry wants the cull completed by May 1st, 2018. The Food Safety Authority must come up with a plan of action by mid-June. Chronic wasting disease can be passed among members of the deer family, but it isn't known to affect humans. The condition targets an animal's brain, leading to loss of bodily functions and death.
Strikes killed at least 16 people in Bangladesh in a single day. The storms on May 9th injured multiple others as well. The Dhaka Tribune says the killed and injured spanned across 9 districts in Bangladesh and that they were all working outside when they were hit. Rural areas in Bangladesh have been heavily deforested over the years to make room for rice fields. One side effect is that there aren't many trees left to protect people from lightning strikes. News source AFP reports more than 200 Bangladeshis were killed by lightning in 2016. So the country is working on a new initiative to plant 1 million palm trees by June. The hope is that the trees will absorb the impact of the lightning, saving people on the ground below. The new palm trees will take years to grow, though.
Sky looks mean, man.
A big day for tornadoes in New Mexico yesterday. There's one in Clovis, New Mexico. This was one of 8 reported tornadoes. Luckily, we were not looking at widespread damage or any injuries. Today, the severe weather is going to go from the southern plains all the way to the Midwest. Now, the highest threat for tornadoes is going to be through parts of western Texas and Oklahoma, but still a big hail threat with this system as well. So storms will fire up through the morning and the afternoon. And look at that. We're going all the way from Denver into the Chicago area. So this is a broad area of severe weather today. Thursday, we're still looking at a threat of tornadoes, hail, and wind. And Friday, that threat pushes off to the southeast. Now, the heaviest rain is going to come on the northern edge of this system, and we could see some renewed flooding back in the flood zones from last week. So this is something we'll have to monitor. It's basically a wide field of 1-inch rain totals from Kansas City down through Memphis and up through Indy. In and around the Cincy area, we could pick up 2 inches.
President Donald Trump has fired FBI Director James Comey. The move comes on the recommendation of the U.S. Attorney General. Trump said that a new leadership is needed to restore public trust in the agency. With more, here's our Washington correspondent, Caleb Moppin.
One of Donald Trump's key catchphrases has been the phrase, "You're fired." And now it seems that FBI Director James Comey is being dismissed. In a letter that was very to the point and didn't beat around the bush at all, Comey was thanked by Donald Trump. Trump said, "I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation." However, the letter goes on to say that based on clear recommendations from U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Comey is being asked to step down. Now, we have heard statements from Deputy Attorney Generals saying that almost everyone agreed that the director made serious mistakes. It is one of the few issues that unites people of diverse perspectives. So apparently within the Justice Department, there was some dislike and widespread feeling that Comey needed to go. Now that Comey has been fired by Donald Trump, all throughout the Democratic Party, we are hearing outrage. The Democratic Party seems to be rallying behind Comey.
Well, I didn't think this administration could surprise me anymore. Today, they surprised me. I think the president's firing of Jim Comey was outrageous. I thought the timing is more than a little bit suspicious.
Chuck Schumer has spoken up and called for a special prosecutor. They've attempted to say that this is linked to Comey's investigation of the Trump administration and any colluding with Russia.
Every American will rightly suspect that the decision to fire Director Comey was part of a cover-up.
Now, there has been ongoing tension between Donald Trump's administration and the intelligence community. The intelligence community has widely been blamed for leaks. A number of classified statements and classified information that was not meant for the public has found its way to the press. Now, Donald Trump said that trust needed to be restored between law enforcement and the White House. And it seems the implications of the statements coming from the Trump administration and their allies is that a more loyal figure needs to be leading the FBI.